Neumann with the white trunks and the good right hand to the chin. Neumann is showing a pretty good amount of equipment for a youngster.
I grew up in Cliffside Park, home of Palisades Amusement Park, which was a very successful big park for 40, 50 years. And I met Gus Lesovich there, because he was from Cliffside too. So that was my first exposure to boxing. And he was a real good guy, a real gentleman, always took care of the kids. And, I grew up with his family. So I had that in my mind. I played football and wrestled in high school. I just wanted to reach out and do some other things. I met Joe Vella, and he took me over to Gleason's gym up in the South Bronx at the time. And I just started in and had great trainers. Joe Vella was a good manager. So that's how I got started.
Yeah. Talk about Jimmy Braddock, your relationship with him, to what he means to the sport of boxing.
Well, yeah, he was just such a gentleman, such a great fighter. He was the man, he was the champ, and he was such a gentleman. He would take me aside and teach me things, and he just went out of his way to work with a young boxer. And I was flattered to have Jimmy Braddock talk to me. It was always a pleasure to be around him.
Yeah. Take me into that building. A lot of people don't remember Gleason's in the South Bronx, right?
It was wonderful. The older guys would take care of the younger guys. It wasn't that they'd want to beat you up or anything. That would be pretty stupid. So boxers with a brain don't try to beat up new guys coming in. You want to train them and help them, and then they'll help you eventually if you need them for a sparring partner or whatever. So that's what I found at Gleason's. But I mean, you talk about Fort Apache there. There were shootings all over the place, and across from the gym was the Butcher Bar, and that was a great place. And it was just an interesting place to go to. And I used to tell people from here in Jersey, I go to Gleason's gym in the South Bronx. So, what are you, crazy? Because I went to college in the city in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I started at New York Tech, and I finished up at Fairleigh Dickinson in Jersey.
How long did it take you to figure out, okay, I can make a career out of this?
Well, fortunately, as I mentioned, I had a good manager, Joe Vella, who managed Gus Lesovich to the light heavyweight title of the world. So he brought me along pretty well. You need to go up the ladder. Yeah. And once in a while, if you go up too quickly, you can get kicked off. And then when the contract expired, Joe was dead, and the manager I had was a bookmaker. So I said, no, I don't know if I needed this guy. But along the way, I was threatened by a local manager in New Jersey. He took me aside at a fight and said, I heard you got rid of your manager. I said, yeah. He said, well, you ain't going to get any fights. I said, well, screw you. Found out he was right. But along the way, I met a guy named Dewey Fergetta. Have you ever heard of Dewey?
Sure. Yeah.
And he called me up, and he said, I understand you're looking for a manager. And so Dewey's game was, he would send you overseas, Europe, South America, wherever. He took 10%. My whole group took 50. So by the time he brought this up with me, I kind of knew the business a little bit. I was a college student. I learned something. It was fortunate that I was at the point where I could do this. I could pick my own fights, because he'd give me a list, fight this guy, that guy, and I'd find out who these people were, even if it was overseas. I won most of the fights that he got for me. Got robbed once or twice. I fought, they were 10, 12 round fights, and it was in the guy's backyard mostly. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But then I became wanted again back in America, because I was rated a heavyweight.
Right.
Like when I was a nobody, they didn't. Who cared? Who needs Randy Neumann?
Right. Now you by the mid '70s though, you're in the top 10.
Yeah.
That's a That's a tough,
Yeah.
tough time to be a heavyweight.
Yeah.
Just talk about, and I know you fought Quarry and Jimmy Young and Chuck Wepner, and just talk
Dwayne
about...
Bobbitt knocked me
Dwayne
on my
Bobbitt,
ass.
Yeah. Just talk about that era of heavyweight.
You're correct. It was a great time for heavyweight boxing. Ali, Frazier, Lyle, Bonavina, Shavers, and one animal worse than the other. And I made it up to number 9 in the world, number 6 in the U.S.
Let's go to the 3 with Chuck Wepner, famous battles, all 12-round fights.
The first fight I won, gave him a boxing lesson. As I was a boxer, he was a slugger. The second fight, I lost. And his manager told me why, because he fixed it. Big Al Braverman. And the third fight, I got cut. But Chuck and I have been friends during then and since then, and we fought each other, but that's business. He was a big, tough guy. He wasn't a boxer, like stick and move guy, but he was a big, strong guy. He was much bigger than me. I think he was about 6'6" or something, and you couldn't hurt him. Throw anything you wanted at him, he would take it. We had good fights.
Yeah,
It was the boxer against, it's about style-wise, you had the boxer against the puncher, and wrestler. He did a lot of things.
Is his the nickname the Bayonne Bleeder? Is that accurate?
Not to me, because I got cut in the last fight. Getting cut by Chuck Wepner is kind of is it an honor or a joke or an impossibility?
Should be the other way around.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't stop him on cuts. Other people did, but I didn't.
Yeah. How about Jimmy Young? You beat Jimmy Young, who would many people believe you beat Ali.
Yeah, he did.
Talk about the fight with Young.
I was a better boxer than he was, and I kicked the shit out of him. I just gave him a boxing lesson, and people were shocked that this white guy could beat Jimmy Young. It was just a matter of styles, and I just had a good night, and he had a bad night, I guess. And I won one-sided fight.
Of all your wins, which would you consider the best? What was the most satisfying?
Oh, Jimmy Young. Jimmy Young was a master boxer. I mean, I was surprised I beat him. I thought I could.
Yeah.
I knew I could. I did, but he was a super boxer. There aren't that many around. He was it.
Of course, Quarry. You're leading. You're ahead on the cards. Talk about the Quarry fight.
That's very simple. His manager, Gil Clancy.
Yeah.
Clancy was shocked. I could see across the ring that I was giving Quarry a boxing lesson, and it was working. And Quarry wasn't hitting me in the ass with anything, and I was pounding him. And his manager said, "You better do something with this kid." So he hit me in the balls. I mean, a knockout punch right in the balls. Now, I was known as a good referee. I was flattered by a lot of people. But a lot of my refereeing had to do with having been a fighter. And I was shocked that the referee didn't disqualify his ass. But they didn't do it in those days. In those days, you got away with it. Today, you kidding? If you go like this, they'll disqualify you. So the referee just stole the fight. So that's how I lost that fight.
What led you to want to become a ref?
It's a good question, because I loved boxing, but I didn't want to be a trainer and just hang out at a gym. I didn't want to be a flesh peddler and manager. And I said, wait a minute. I guess the closest thing I can get into boxing and stay in it is being a ref. So I called up the Garden, where I fought dozens of times, and I said, can you put my name in with whoever trains referees and tell me what to do? And I said, sure. So they gave me a couple of 4-rounders. I just kind of moved myself along. I had always been a student of the game, and I was always willing to learn. I talked to a lot of the refs who used to referee me and taught me things. Yeah. And I'd call them up and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Oh, fine, yeah, welcome to the club, and we're here to help you out. And so they helped me, which was great. You want to have a big man with a heavyweight, because otherwise you can't handle him. Because it's physical. You got to get in there and you got to push him and you got to move him. So I think it's funny. I mean, sometimes there's no choice, but you get a guy who weighs 100 pounds and he's refereeing guys who are 220 pounds. It doesn't work that well. You can't shove them, which you have to. So it's good to have a heavyweight referee who knows how to referee heavyweights.
Yeah, and I mean, you were the third man in the ring with some icons, right? So what was it like being in there with Tyson? And what was that Tyson mystique like?
You're absolutely right. He did have a mystique. He had an aura about him, and people were afraid of him. Now, I had a pretty easy fight. He knocked out Carl the Truth Williams in the first round. But
referee for this bout is Randy Neumann.
And the Truth was a pretty good fighter, but Tyson nailed him. So Tyson was unbeatable at that time. Nobody could beat him. I found him to be a gentleman. I think he understood who I was and what I was.
He was a student of the game.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Yes, he was. Because his manager made him that way. Yeah. So I found it a thrill to work with him, and I knew, there wouldn't be any problems.
Another legend, you caught him at the tail end of his career, was Duran.
It's such a pleasure being in with a great. That's why, they're cut above the rest. And even when they get a little older, they still can fight like hell. So, and there are very few people, that we're talking about that are like that. So it's just a pleasure being in the ring with these greats. Yeah. To be a good referee is not that easy. You got to really know what you're doing in there, and you got to make decisions. The snap of a finger. Either a guy lives or dies based on what you're going to do. Yeah. So that's one extreme end of it, and the other is just, you have to learn to let these guys do things that some people don't think are right, but they're not wrong, because it is a fight. But you can't have somebody hitting the other guy in the balls or stepping on his feet or headbutting him. So you've got to learn to be quite the general in there. Yeah. So you don't have to be a great fighter to be a great referee, but it doesn't hurt.
Right. Yeah.